can see lots of head shaking and lots of note taking, so there's obviously some key points for you in those two speeches. Our final conference speaker this morning is Tim Occleshaw, and he's going to be speaking to us this morning as the Government Chief Technology Officer. And he's going to be sharing a few thoughts on his perspective about delivery at pace. Now, I had the pleasure of working with Tim at Inland Revenue, and I remember a time when my web team had collaborated with Policy Advice. And what they were doing was to find a solution to policy consultation. And what they came up with was moving that online for student loan policy consultation. And that piece of work was delivered at pace within 90 days. And here's the reason why: because we had senior leadership support. And that, to me, is one of the key things if you're delivering at pace. You needed that support. And I've also realised it's June 2014. It's a year since the Government ICT Strategy and Action Plan was launched. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from Tim about what progress we've made. So please join me in welcoming Tim.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. I appreciate those kind words. And I do remember that. That was a great event, actually, the launch of the government's first online consultation, which I recall got feedback from about 33 countries. Clearly not possible with a manual paper-based consultation process. So it was a great result, actually, for the department, but also for the students and others who wanted to provide feedback. We've heard some very valuable perspectives this morning from the Minister, Minister Dunn, and from Naomi as CE of a large agency that's facing its own set of challenges, which are difficult but are not unique, I'm sure, and I'm certain that many of you in the room identified with some of those challenges. So I'd like to move on to what delivery at pace means from my perspective as the Government Chief Technology Officer. So my role is also as a Deputy Chief Executive of the Department of Internal Affairs, is to support and enable, really, the GCIO in carrying out Ministers' expectations for systemic change that's powered by ICT. And to do that, I need to work very closely across the sector, across all agencies, and help to bring everybody together on this journey. Delivery at pace. Well, it's not a sprint, I don't think. It's more of a marathon, I suspect, but it is a marathon that's setting a reasonably fast pace, driven by the expectations that we've heard Minister Dunn and indeed Naomi talk about. I think the faster that we can achieve safely achieve a sustainable transformation, the sooner we're all going to benefit. We're all going to benefit as public servants and as customers of government. I liked Naomi's example, talking about a customer, or for that matter a staff member, having to manually cut and paste information between clumsy systems that are no longer fit for purpose. If I think of my experience at Inland Revenue, the first system is a system that in some ways is no longer fit for purpose, but it remains a very robust and very good tax administration system. It's just that the purpose has changed around it, and the customer demands have changed over years. This is the vision that we're all working to, the clear direction from government. Two key words, I think, sum up Minister's expectations, and Minister Dunn did use the words radically transformed. So this is not just about what ministers want, though. This is about what New Zealanders expect from us. They want services from us on their terms, not on our terms, not in our silos, not in terms of our legislation, but on their terms. And they want them where they are, not where we are. And they want them whenever they need them. It's our role, the people in this room, our role as government's ICT leaders to enable this transformation. ICT will power this change that we're talking about. And without a step change in the way we think about and manage and deploy ICT, the change won't be possible. For me, this is a very exciting time to be in government ICT. Naomi talked about not thinking of this transformation in terms of replacing ICT systems, though. or not. You know, what ICT do we need in the future? She talked about it as starting from what should our business look like in the future in 5 or 10 or 15 years, which is really what this is all about. I guess the graphic might slightly overstate the expectations. However, it is clear that delivery at pace is a given, and the pace is accelerating, and I see that happening every week, really. Last year, as Rebecca reminded us, we did launch the government's ICT strategy and action plan. In fact, it was, I think, no, not quite exactly. I think it was the 17th of June, actually, but it was at GOVIS last year where I made that announcement. The government's ICT strategy and action plan was something that was developed collectively. There are people in this room who actively contributed, more than a few, actively contributed to the development of the government's ICT strategy and action plan, and more people in this room who continue to deliver on the content, the actions within that plan. I'll spend some time this morning just talking about some of the things we've achieved in the last year or so, and also some of the things that we've learned along the way. And in many ways, this is a journey of change through which we'll learn our way forward in some ways. I'll be looking a little bit at our next steps, so what's coming up in the near future, where to from here, and focus on how we, and in this case I mean we as the GCIO function, how we can help with what's needed and help to achieve success together. So expectations have been set, and Minister Dunn did talk about some of these. ICT function leadership was established in October 2012. 9 months after that, the strategy and action plan was approved by Cabinet, and we've spent the last year delivering on the first set of the actions within that plan. We've also, at the same time as launching the ICT Strategy and Action Plan, taken on responsibility for ICT system-wide assurance. And this is not more audit and monitoring activity per se. This is what ministers want from us is a greater level of system-wide assurance that the ICT investments they're going to make will deliver on the benefits. And of course, as the Minister said, that agencies are identifying and mitigating and managing the risks that go with that. The GCIO works across the entire state services. Initially it was the 33 core public and non-public service departments. As the Minister has just announced this morning, that mandate's now extended, so it includes all of the DHBs, as well as ACC, Housing New Zealand, NZTA, NZTE, NZQA, Tertiary Education Commission and EQC. We're delighted to welcome those organisations on board, and I'm certain this is going to help us to accelerate the systemic change. And in fact, in a couple of cases, people in this room, I'm looking probably at Craig Souter actually in particular, NZTA have been with us on this journey from the beginning and active contributors all the way through, which has been great. This is going to help us to increase the systemic change that's required, the rate of the change, as I said. It's also going to help us in other ways. So the 60 organisations are now required to consume the ICT common capabilities where they exist. Now, the good news is I don't need to get out a big stick and say, here's the mandate, you must use these things. Actually, most of the users of these services are volunteers because they're commercially attractive. And the good news for all of us is as we bring on large organisations and large numbers of users, particularly through DHBs, we're all going to get savings from that. It gets cheaper for every one of us. We'll continue to work with the state services agencies to drive that systemic change through the uptake of the common capabilities, through aligning investment in better ways, getting better visibility of the government's ICT investment portfolio and sharing that as much as is possible, and ongoing improvements in privacy and security practice. And there is more than that, of course. The ICT Strategy and Action Plan has 4 focus areas, all of which are underpinned and in many ways enabled by an appropriate ICT assurance regime. All of the focus areas within the strategy are in some way intertwined. Success of one will contribute to success of the others. The first of those is described as services are digital by default. As the Minister said, this is mostly focused through Result 9 and Result 10, but not limited to those two key Better Public Services results. We have made reasonably good progress. 29% to 42% is reasonably good progress. It isn't quite enough, though. In order to achieve the 70% target by the middle of 2017, the pace is going to have to accelerate a little. The 8 agencies directly involved in Result 10 focused through the Digital Services Council, a group of second-tier leaders from those 8 agencies, have developed a Result 10 blueprint that's going through a cabinet process at the moment and serves as a strategic guide for agencies to make services digital by design. The blueprint has a series of actions to support customers through digital transition, redesigning services and increasing system capability. The blueprint is available on the DIA website for those who want to take a look. Another key area here is government's information interface, digital interface for New Zealanders, which is at the moment still a beta website, the beta.gov.nz website. Next month, that becomes newzealand.gov. Provides a significantly improved entry point for people to log on to a centralised government government website, which links the services in logical groupings from New Zealanders' perspectives, not by agency, not by particular legislative tower or whatever else, but by individual customer need. It's been built with a large collaborative effort from a number of organisations, but also a lot of user testing with New Zealanders to make sure that it meets their needs. If you haven't taken a look, I do encourage you to do that, beta.gov.nz. You'll still find it there for the next few weeks, I think. Ministers also do want to see more of approaches like the Inland Revenue crowdsourcing approach to their app design that Naomi talked about. Now, that's not to say I'm encouraging you all to go and build your own app stores. There are international jurisdictions that are struggling already with potentially thousands of already legacy iPhone apps. Singapore's one of those. That said, the concept of crowdsourcing the design, the co-creation with business and citizens, I think is a very powerful one, and one that I was present when IRD talked about that to the ICT Ministers group, and they were very, very interested in it. The second of the focus areas, these are not in order of importance, by the way, is information is managed as an asset. The Minister talked about unlocking the value of the information that we hold. So this is about a lot of things, in particular enabling better policy and business design, improving decision-making across government with better information and more consistent information, and better public access to that information. Clearly, trust and confidence in government is key here. We are halfway through the 2-year information privacy and security program, and agencies have completed security assessments of all publicly accessible information systems, and we've seen a significant improvement in that space over the last, 18 months, really. And organisations continue to report steady improvements in that capability and the understanding of that. I think Russell gets 2 photo opportunities in this presentation, and he probably isn't here because he's not officially in role yet, but we have now appointed the Government Chief Privacy Officer, Russell Bernard, who joins the Department of Internal Affairs on the 1st of July. This is a permanent role in the department, in the GCIO sort of area, if you like, which is focused on increasing that sort of sustained capability development and focus on privacy, information privacy across government. The focus aligns very closely with the related guidance being prepared, still being developed with a number of security agencies in terms of security of information and other assets. Work has begun on an all-of-government approach to information management to enable more coordinated leadership and governance of information management through a coherent and cohesive regulatory framework, more consistent standards, many of which are already in place, but there's an ongoing piece of work, and cross-government approaches to these sometimes quite complex information management issues. And there are a number of initiatives underway, including piloting a data governance framework, maturity assessment model, and working with MB at the moment on developing an inventory of the major data sets, which I think will be useful to all of us. The third area in the strategy and action plan is described as investment and capability are shared. So we talk about a centrally guided investment program. That doesn't mean that the GCIO is going to decide which business cases go forward and which ones don't. That said, ministers do want our advice on ICT investment plans and proposals, and expect that when agencies are making business cases and cabinet papers going up through their own minister, that they will have consulted the GCIO and have our perspective built into it. Also, we're working hard to give ministers a better perspective on what the overall investment landscape looks like, moving away from what traditionally has been looking at individual business cases in isolation and not being able to see the bigger picture. If we do more of X, we need to do less of Y. So ministers don't often get a clear view of that. So we're working closely with the Treasury to increase that visibility and give ministers what they're asking for. This, I think, builds greater sector coherence and leverage across the whole state sector in terms of where we're investing our money, and hopefully we'll be seeing greater reuse as well. This is all being further enabled by the use of the common capabilities, some of which we've talked about already, and these are services, back office in many cases, or infrastructural commodity services that are scalable and that are provided to you on an as-needs basis at the right fit-for-purpose levels. I can say that with confidence because these things have been co-developed with a number of consuming agencies, not just invented somewhere in the centre, with our fingers crossed that you'll all come and join us. And that's one of the reasons we have mostly volunteers in the groups using the common capabilities, such as infrastructure as a service, the one.gov network, and others, because they're commercially attractive. So, as I said, ministers do expect us to be advising on ICT-enabled projects and programs and business cases that your organisations will be developing going forward. So I have to give a plug for our team. We do strongly encourage you to engage us as early as possible to ensure that there are no surprises and that we've got a good amount of clarity about the sorts of things we would like to see in your business cases, and give you a bit of a steer on the sorts of things that ministers, ICT ministers in particular, would like to see in these business cases. We are also aligning ourselves very closely now with the Treasury processes for things like developing 4-year plans and the capital investment intentions process. And there will be some new guidance coming out for the process that will begin in a few months' time fairly soon. So the ICT common capabilities do feature quite a bit in the discussion this morning. They are, in our view, key building blocks for an ICT transformation. We'll continue to develop these. We'll continue to co-develop these with your organisations as early adopters or as consuming organisations at the time when your current arrangements for commodity infrastructure might expire, or there'll be an opportunity to change arrangements. This week, we've announced the new Office Productivity as a Service common capability. So this is the third in the suite of cloud services designed to standardise systems, help agencies to save money and drive efficiencies, and work together. There's a bit more detail coming up on I think it's the next slide. We also announced the Desktop as a Service offering late last year. 4 agencies are already implementing that, including Department of Internal Affairs. And it's going very well, I have to say. We also have 4 more agencies very well advanced in the engagement process. So remember, this is no longer a procurement process. You don't need to do that, but you do need to be thinking about solution refinement and integration. 4 agencies well into that process. 42 agencies have expressed strong interest in DAS and are working with us at some level, which is really, really positive. We've got 5 agencies already talking to a preferred enterprise content management system supplier, 15 more expressing interest actively in those services, 20 agencies currently consuming services from the ICT Security Services panel. RealMe is seeing healthy growth also. This, for us, is integral to service delivery transformation, to citizen centricity and information management. And we do expect agencies to be planning how you will use the RealMe service as the common capability for identity assertion and authentication. There are 140 state sector organisations using the Microsoft licensing agreement. That initiative in its own right has savings over its 3-year life to 2015 of $119 million. We've got 45 agencies now using infrastructure as a service. Cost savings to date so far in that space are $16.6 million, and also 45 agencies using the one.gov network services and having achieved savings since 2009 when that started of now $25.6 million. I mentioned office productivity as a service, so another key building block here for us. The first phase of that, I'm sure you all know that the vendor signed up to provide that service is one of our local favourites who are here today, Datacom. The first services there are email and calendaring, as well as content filtering and those sorts of things coming up soon. Agencies told us that the email and calendaring was the greatest need, so that's why we started. The next phase will include things like collaboration tools and file sharing and device-based conferencing and other useful tools. The numbers look pretty good for office productivity as a service. The analysis that we've done indicates that for many agencies the savings could be as much as 50%. I'm told that the average for the agencies that we surveyed, if you look at user costs per month, is around between $16 and $20 per month per user for consumption of these services. The office productivity as a service pricing is $8.50 per month. So we will see quite significant savings there across the sector. Of course, another benefit is you pay for what you need when you need it. It's entirely scalable. And you don't need to own, maintain, upgrade your own infrastructure. I think this will also make collaboration and portability across agencies much easier. Each year, roughly a third of organisations in the state sector look at upgrading or replacing office productivity systems in one form or another. So we're anticipating fairly strong demand for the OPAS services. We'll have to prioritise. Since Monday's launch, we've had a lot of contact direct to me and through to others in my team about this. So if you are planning to upgrade or refresh your office productivity services in the next little while, I do encourage you to please contact us as soon as possible. I don't think any strategy could be complete without a good deal of focus on leadership and culture. I think Naomi said in her comments that one of the most important things from her point of view in driving a transformation is the cultural aspect. We are working with the State Services Commission's Leadership and Talent Hub and the Leadership Development Centre to build business leadership of ICT at multiple levels, not just with chief executives. Part of that is about not really trying to give chief executives all the right answers, but certainly in many cases to arm them with better questions. There are a number of plans that we're developing there, focusing on activities like a series of seminars, which could be on ICT leadership, assurance, and also transformation. And I think those will be, I hope those will be quite useful. It's looking quite positive from my point of view. As I think Minister Dunn said, we also have a role in CIO recruitment. There are 14 key CIO positions identified in those 33 core public service organisations where the GCIO has a specific role in the recruitment. And we're pleased to be able to help. We've already had a number of organisations approach us proactively, and we've been able to help in terms of assisting with things like long listing and short listing, and even provide somebody to assist on the panel and review job descriptions and those sorts of things. We're very pleased to help in that space. Now, all of those 4 focus areas all need to be underpinned by ICT assurance. And this, as I think the Minister said, is really about ensuring that the investments that are proposed, that are planned and that are made, deliver on the benefits that are promised. So it's not about more audit and monitoring per se. It's a different sort of focus, and it's very much a forward-looking focus. How can we work with you to ensure that the risks and issues are mitigated and managed, that risks are identified very early, and that they're raised to the right level in the organisation, and there are appropriate governance processes and those sorts of things, but also helping to manage stakeholder expectations and a variety of things that can tend to get in the way as complex delivery projects get sticky toward the end of the Gantt chart, as they so often do. So all high-risk ICT-enabled projects and programs must have an approved and resourced ICT assurance plan. This is some of the stuff that's described in the frameworks that are published on the ict.gov.nz website. This is to provide chief executives and their organisations and their ministers with additional confidence and comfort that the investment will deliver on the expected outcomes. And avoiding what I think Naomi rather eloquently described as delivering the project but missing the point, which we've probably all seen happen here and there in the past as ICT professionals. There's also an operational aspect to this. This is not just about large investments in ICT projects and programs. It's about operational assurance. So it's about assuring that your existing systems, your business operations that are enabled by those critical systems, have an appropriate ICT operations assurance plan around them. Again, something that's described in reasonable detail in the ICT assurance frameworks published on ict.gov. We've also run a number of briefings, and they will continue, briefings for CIOs, for senior responsible owners, for those of you familiar with gateway language, project and program and portfolio management officers in your organisations. These are underway actually at the moment, some of them going on in Wellington and Auckland. Through this process, we're also building up a picture of the overall ICT risk environment across the state sector, something ministers really want to get a greater deal of granularity on. This is not about identifying agencies to go and beat up, I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear. It is about understanding where the forthcoming future risks might lie and how we can support organisations who are facing those to better manage and mitigate them. Minister Dunn also referred to the Cloud Risk Assessment Framework, published again, you all know where it is, which will help you to assess the solutions that you might propose when considering outsourcing into the cloud. And of course that's appropriate in our view in many cases for data up to restricted but not beyond, particularly when you're looking at an offshore option, which the media occasionally report erroneously as being off the table. It is not off the table. Offshoring is okay for data up to the level of restricted, subject to your risk assessment, of course. So ICT assurance is one of the enablers that we have, because we do need to deliver at pace, but we need to do it safely. So appropriate assurance regimes are going to be key. For us, we've talked about for more than a year now of an approach that is centrally led but collaboratively delivered. In fact, I could add to that collaboratively developed at the beginning as well. We are on this journey together, and we see our role in the GCIO group as primarily guidance and assistance. It obviously has a strategic lens to it, and we help with planning and a variety of activities, but guidance and assistance primarily at its core. Some of that's going to be brokering. Part of the ICT strategy is to grow and share capability so the public service gets the best from the centres of competency that we have out there. And we're here to listen as well, because we don't know everything. It won't surprise you to hear. So we are here to listen to you. There is a lot of good stuff going on across the public sector. As I know you know, in this room we have hundreds, possibly thousands of years of ICT experience that we'd all love to be able to better tap into. So along the way, there's been a great deal of enthusiasm which continues to encourage and inspire me. Many people are indeed excited by the opportunities ahead of us. We have a lot of people who have been directly involved in the development, the early stages of this journey in this room. I mentioned the ICT task force that developed the strategy and action plan, the cloud program board, the boards for things like telecommunications as a service, which is coming up in the not too distant future. Encouraging development of communities of practice through connecting people together, more of that brokering sort of role. And we have seen some great examples of collaboration across not just the better public services result areas, but, you know, as one example, the police engaging with other emergency services agencies to ensure that the design and delivery of the Emergency Response Command Centre was something that met the needs of all in the sector. So where to from here? We said to ministers a year ago that every year we would review the strategy and action plan. We didn't mean we'd do a new strategy every year. We specifically said we'd review the actions every year. That's underway at the moment. And that recognises that this will be an evolving journey. Everything in the strategy and action plan obviously has to go through due diligence in terms of business case processes and investment considerations and all those usual things. So some will be approved and some won't. As things are delivered, the journey will change. So we're reviewing that action plan at the moment, and that's a collaborative exercise that some of you would have already been consulted on, others will be in the future. And we expect to share the results of all of that in the next couple of months. Halfway through, so by next year, we review the ICT strategy. Is it still on target to deliver on the Minister's objectives and our intentions as a public service? We're looking at governance arrangements as well. I'm not really in a position yet to tell you where that's going to land, but I can certainly tell you the principles behind our approach are straightforward. We want to streamline and simplify the governance. We want greater coherence, and we want fewer meetings. Now, we're talking about all of government work here. We are not talking about your own project and program governance boards, obviously. There's work on an ICT operating model which will follow up the action plan review, so again coming in the very near future. Working with Treasury on longer-term sustainable funding models. So these are funding models to help encourage shared investment and development where one agency invests and the benefits might lie elsewhere. This has been a problem area for many organisations, I know, and we are looking to get a very clear approach to that and guidance out before you need to start your budget planning for next year, so by around September this year. Progress is good on that. I mentioned telecommunications as a service. The other new thing that's coming up that's quite large for us is the software acquisition strategy. So I mentioned $119 million of savings from the Microsoft agreement over its life, its 3-year life. We're now extending that work to some other major government vendors, you know, all of the usual suspects, Oracle and SAP and various others. And I'm certain there'll be significant savings, tens of millions of dollars of savings for the public service out of that work. I'm not going to go through all the people on this list. This information is published on the ict.gov website. These are the people who are working together to make ICT functional leadership a reality. So I'd encourage you to take a look. Some of you will have seen an information pack that we issued some weeks back. It went to CIOs, it went to chief executives and a small number of others as well about the GCIO function, the key people involved in that, our roles and how we're here to support you. One area in particular, though, we have a relationship management function, which is about giving you a focal point for your interaction with ICT function leadership, with the GCIO, for matters that aren't specifically project or program or operational assurance matters. So I will invite John Roberts to stand up. John leads that function, has a small team of people who will help to be your conduit, if you like, to connecting with the GCIO. So our function leadership role in internal affairs requires us to support every agency to successfully better use ICT and to deliver better public services within the framework that you've heard much about this morning, and to build a more coherent and efficient and sustainable public sector. So it is about delivery at pace. As I said, the quicker that we can do this sustainable transformation safely, the better for all of us as public servants and as customers. And we are here to help. Thank you.
Just want to thank you very much for that, Tim. And I was particularly interested in the idea of learning our way forward that you mentioned early on, and also the OPAS, the announcement on Monday.
Yes,
is great.
yes.
It's a great service that we can all take up. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you,
and
Matt.
here's a gift from us.
Much appreciated. Very kind.